this session is going to talk about you, about us, about everyone here out in the street, about citizens and the role of citizens in this shift towards a sustainable society in a post-petroleum era. So what we want to understand here is very much the role of the citizens, but also the perception of citizens and the disconnect in some cases to some extent between the political ambitions and the reality on the ground. All right? And so to discuss these important topics, I have the pleasure to introduce our four speakers. So from left to right, Fabio Fava, you are a professor of industrial and environmental biotechnology at University of Bologna. You also chair the BBIJU state representative group, right? Welcome. Next to you, Susanna Albertini, founder and managing director of FVA New Media Research. And you're also involved in many, right? EU-funded project, BioVoices, Biobridges, European Bioeconomy, Bioeconomy Network. I'm not going to list them all, but you're pretty active. Nelo Emerencia, you're director of programming at the Bio-based Industries Consortium. Welcome as well. And finally, Maria Barbosa, you're a professor, not associate professor, at the Department of Agrotechnology and Food Sciences at Wageningen University. Thank you to the four of you for joining us. The way we're going to proceed is that we will start with opening statement from each of you. Not too long. You have a timer, so I'll leave you responsible for your time management. But right after that, we'll go into a group discussion. For the time being, sit back, relax, but don't fall asleep, because I'll go to you for questions. All right? So let's start. Well, Susanna, as I said, you've been involved in many projects. Do you want to set the scene?
I've been volunteered by everybody to be the first. That is always a strange situation. But anyway, okay. So when we started more or less 3.5 years ago to talk about bioeconomy, and we, through the several projects, but in the beginning it was just bio-waste, and we went to speak to tell what bioeconomy is in large-scale events, and the people were like that, and saying, bio what? And after a while, we realized just in a short time, in 1.5 years, that the people now, but also 1 year ago, they start to ask bio how. This means that they really change. They want to be informed in a different way. And here is the role of education and info education. And also involves a number of things that we will discuss involving multipliers, who are the good people to take on board. And now, we have to keep on involving them, to keep on informing them, but we need to start really involving them. So we pass from bio what to bio how, and now we have to go to bio act. So we need to really bring the citizen in the center of the discussion. And this is not an easy task, because Europe has been criticized because all the approaches that have been adopted up to now are top-down. So informing the people, this is bioeconomy, this is what should have been done, but not bottom-up. So now it's time to change, because the consumer are really in the center and are the main actor that should really make the change. There are interesting movements like vote with your wallet, so they really, us, we can really make the change, because we can really buy what we want to buy, and we can demonstrate to brands that we just buy what is sustainable, and we don't buy what is not sustainable. But of course, this has a number of risks, including fake news, misperceptions, and the waste. So there are a number of issues that should be addressed by the stakeholders' engagement. All the different stakeholders should be in place to really support and enable this transition to the Green Deal, transition to new consumption, production, and also lifestyle. So this is what we will discuss. I just launched my ball, and so I pass the ball to...
Go ahead.
I will sit. I will stay here, and I will shortly. So I've been working for 20 years now on aquatic biomass, on microalgae. So also this was the last value chain that appeared in the BBI. Very important. I'm from academia, so I believe that education is the key. I'm not to reach our citizens. So in fact, I not only do research and there, of course, I coordinate a project here on the BBI on aquatic biomass on microalgae to make it a real, let's say, a bio-based feedstock or for different components. But I would like to focus on education because education is compulsory up to a certain level. And this is also what we're doing in Wageningen, is that we start even at primary school to address these groups. So these people at primary school, also at high school, and then also at university. So we're starting very early to explain what is, in fact, bio-based sciences. So also, just for curiosity, I mean, some years ago, in 2012, we made an interview to about 4,000 students in high school if they knew what bio-based sciences were. 70% have never heard about it. 7% they knew they had heard about it. And of these 70% that never heard about it at high school, they were when you explained what was bio-based sciences, they were extremely excited about it. And 40% even said, well, we'll go and study in Wageningen. So universities, they should also invest in this. And this is also what Wageningen has been doing in the last year. So we started 3 years ago, I coordinated a MOOC, so it's a massive online open course on bio-based sciences. Within a couple of months, when it was on the air, we had more than 17,000 participants from 150 different countries. So this is also shows the importance of it. Lately, 2 years ago, we also started a master's on bio-based sciences. It is not easy because it is a challenge because you cover a wide range of expertises from production of biomass, from technology, biotechnology, refining, politics, products, policy making, economics. So this is in fact what we're putting together, and these new professionals in bio-based science, they have to go across this expertise, but also in depth in this expertise. So it is our second year in this master of bio-based sciences, and the number of students increased from the last year. So I do think that education will, it's really also where there should be investment for also to reach in our citizens in the near future. So also, and also other things that's bio-based science. I also would like to say this. It is a concept. It's a concept that needs to be brought in different courses, curricula in university, also in chemical engineering, in biotechnologies, in business studies, in social studies. So this is still ongoing, it's still in the beginning, and it should be accelerated, and there should be investment also to do this kind of activities. I'm also vice chair of the Dutch Biotechnology Association, and also there we are struggling. So we're restructuring the association because it was divided in expertise, and we also want to bring bio-based sciences. It's a small association, 300 people, Dutch companies, academics, but we also struggle with that. So also in a larger context, it is not easy to bring it in education, but this is something that we definitely need to do, and we need to accelerate this process.
Thank you. Maria, if you were to do a survey like the one you did 4 years ago, what do you think would be the outcome today?
I think it will be higher. And this is also what we want to do in the near future, because I do think that the 70% will be lower and the 7% will be higher. Okay. I do think so. There is more awareness in the last years.
Very good. Fabio.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As we heard from previous speakers, an effective and science-based communication information towards citizens, policymakers, is essential, of course, because we need to create consensus for implementing any kind of innovation. This is very important, but it's no longer enough, because we have citizens, association of citizens, representatives of citizens on board. They have to be on board where we are designing, when we are projecting the innovation. They have to be on board, because the innovation can be more robust, surely can better respond to the needs of the civil society, can be better setted and more easily implemented for producing impacts. So growth, opportunity, jobs, and also health, wealth. So we need to do in this direction, in particular in bioeconomy domain, because we are dealing with actions that are addressing global challenges, very important challenges, climate change, ecosystem degradation, and so on. So people are quite concerned about this topic, especially the young generation. So we need to do this exercise in this field. It's also very important because here we need to really change the way through which we are producing, managing, and also consuming resources. It's a difficult exercise, very difficult exercise. When they invited me to be here, I say, well, I don't have anything to say. Then I try to understand what I'm doing every day as a scientist, as a professor, with other roles. I can tell that anyone can do something, and we should act, as she mentioned at the beginning. Briefly, as a scientist, I try to participate to one series of events that we have in Italy. They call Scienza in Piazza, so science in plaza. So basically, there are a series of events taking place in the major cities, but in the Sunday morning in the best libraries, at the best theaters, they are open for citizens. There are inside scientists who are presenting the most relevant projects on which they are involved. But this is a presentation, then 1 hour, 1 hour enough discussion with citizens. In my university, University of Bologna, is organizing in different periods of the year the nights of researchers. So as a scientist, we stay on the street. We put on the desk our major products coming from our research, and we make these products available to the citizens. They are moving, they are checking, they are testing, they are saying, wow, you should also do this because we need this, and so on. And we are collecting important information that we try to implement in the lab, in our strategy at the university level. As a scientific coordinator of the Italian bioeconomy strategy, and of the group, the task force that now helping me in implementing the bioeconomy strategy in all the country, I asked to my colleague, when we prepared the first version of Italian bioeconomy strategy, to keep the strategy open for 2 months. We put the strategy on the web, we communicated to anyone, please, this is the strategy, please intervene, provide us with comments. I can tell you that we receive over than 40 strong, relevant comments, inputs. Many of them came from citizens, not from scientists, not from industries, also because the other were involved at the beginning in the preparing of the draft. This was the first version of bioeconomy strategy. Now we have the second one, but we didn't go for the same consultation, but we will do, but we didn't have time for that. And tomorrow we have an event at the Presidents of Council on Ministry on healthy soil. The Prime Minister is there, other 2 ministers are there. We will be in a room for 30 seats, for 30 people, but we are connected, we all one, through streaming. The idea was not to have people in the room, but to have people connected with us. And the school will be there, just for education point, will be there connected formally with the Ministry of Research, will be with us, just to tell that these things can be done. And then finally, as a chair of the state representative group of BBI, JU, as my friend knows very well, We are pushing also topics, to have topics, so call for proposals on which activities addressed to mobilize, engage particular actors in the BBI-JU activities are requested. And we are also promoting many events at the national level in the different countries addressed to present what BBI is doing. But this is the way through which you can also mobilize citizens, especially in the southern and the central Europe, where we are a little bit behind the schedule on bioeconomy in general, but also in the BBI-JU. Thank you. Just to tell, anyone can do a lot. So think about and...
Thank you. Nelo, I'll read to you.
Okay. I would like to make 3 points in my 5 minutes. First of all, BBI is an industry-led JU, so we have the lead industry, and we write topics. And to be very honest, when we started to write our annual topics and annual programs, we did not have citizens in front of our mind. We started out very much a feedstock push. So if you look at the first SIRA, Strategic Innovation and Research Agenda, we were feedstock push. We were trying to get rid of feedstock, residuals, and give it a value. And we started with a very limited number of value chains because every founding father wanted to recognize himself in that SIRA. The first adaptation of the SIRA 2017, we said, we're not going to go on like this. We got to bring in the market. So we brought in the market. We focused on brand owners. We focused on which areas, which segments of the market should we aim our value chains to make it really add value. The third change is coming on now, and we're talking about society. If you look at the vision that we wrote, Vision 2050, we're talking about a bio-society. We're bringing in society, meaning citizens. I have to admit, and in the first instance, when we started to talk about citizen, we meant end consumer, as if here we are, and we are talking to somebody out there who needs to do something smarter. It was almost like we versus them. But we got to realize citizens, and this is the big change in my own thinking, a citizen is all of us. We are all citizens. We all have the responsibility. And if we, those inside, we're preaching to ourselves here in the church, but if we don't act, we don't walk the talk outside, it's not going to work. So this is something that I learned, and in the next annual work plans and Horizon Europe, citizen in meeting all of us will play a key role in our topics. The second issue I want to bring forward is you can involve citizens, but if you don't have citizens to act, to behave differently, it's not going to work. So we have to come up with smart ideas to have citizens act in something. And we are thinking about using digital media, social media to use it. We have some nice examples in Ireland, in the Netherlands, and in Belgium, where citizens are promoted, are stimulated to use their media and participate. And this is what we want. We want citizens to make suggestions to us, how to improve bioeconomy, how to do something different, to help us gain insight into what really bothers people. So we want them to be participative. We want them to behave differently. My third point is, if we want people to change, because this is really what you want, this is one thing that people don't do easily is to change. And particularly not if you tell someone to change. Definitely, if I speak for myself, if someone tells me to change, this is something I'm not going to do, is change. So you have to have it coming from within. And you have to come up with smart ideas to have people motivate and be convinced themselves that they must change. And here's where education comes in. And I absolutely agree with Maria. We are out, we erected a big education team, meaning that we're not going to take over the job of the educations, absolutely not. But we would like to make sure that the educational institutions know what it is that we need in terms of skills, competences, in terms of quantities. And this is very, very crucial at this moment, because if we do not start this process very, very soon, very effectively, we in the industry, the bio-based industry, we are going to get the first pinch at the vocational level. The engineering level will follow, but the first hit is going to be at the vocational level. So here is where education starts, and we are now aiming at students at the secondary schools, university students, but this is only the beginning. Actually, we're looking at the whole education systems. Agree again with Maria, it's the whole. We got to bring sustainability in the mainstream of education. You got to start from primary school, and in this respect, we industry are willing to play our part. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. That set the scene very, very nicely. So thank you to the four of you. We will come back to some of the elements that you mentioned, education being one of them. We heard that the citizen needs to be at the center, and so on and so forth. But I do want to start with a very simple question. Okay, citizens need to be at the center. Okay, the shift cannot happen without citizens. There are different ways of reaching out to citizens. But why should citizens care? What is the benefit for citizens? We all know that it's for better health, a greener planet, a more sustainable planet and society. But is there any simple messages? What are those simple messages that should be passed to the citizens? Who wants to give it a try?
Maybe I can
Yeah,
start?
Susanna.
We are running a very large number of activities with the citizens, so we are experimenting through games, through large-scale science experiments in festivals, on the streets, all over. And we recognize that the way to start a discussion is to inspire. So we kind of design, let's say, a model to connect and then to co-create with the people. So we start with inspire. So we present some, basically, I don't know if you have seen that there is, in the exhibition area, there is an exhibition of bio-based products, but also there are some big pictures over here. So this is one of the concepts of inspire that we have. So you see something that surprises you and you want to learn more. And this is the moment in which we inject some knowledge. And the knowledge is not us, but is from the researchers or from the educators. So we involve those people in informing. And then we go to the next, that is assess, to really hear what the other have to say, so what the citizen have to say. And then we connect, we create connection with the people that have something to say, and the people, but everybody has something to say. So what are your needs? What are your concerns? Why these bio-based products are not acceptable for you? What do you would like to see? Or why you reject it? Or what is more important for you? Health, for instance, is one of the most important criteria. And now we are ready to co-create, not before. So this is a flow that we are following and seems working.
Maria. It should, they should all work. Yeah.
I would like to say something regarding citizens, and I think citizens, or all of us, we want to contribute, what you said, to a better world, but we don't know the impact that we have. So I think there are bringing information and knowledge how an individual can contribute. I think it's very good. We just heard this example this morning of the bin, the smart bin. So there are 9 smart bins in Amsterdam that when people put the garbage there, it tells what's your contribution to our environment, so really information on what the citizen did, how it can contribute to our environment, to a more sustainable world. So I think it's also important if the society is brought in this, is informed about that you as individual can really have a contribution. I think that would be very important for citizens to contribute in a more sustained way. Or I was very impressed with these bins. And another example, for example, is this, which is also dangerous. You know, probably in France there's this Yuka. It's an app where the people, 1 million French, they use this app. So they really have a large impact on the industry. So there's an app that says that you scan a food product and it says it's healthy or not healthy. And what's happening now is that a lot of these really large supermarkets chains, they're making a list of, for example, food additives that are going to be, they will not sell anymore. And they make an impact also then on looking for sustainable sources. I do think it's important. It's also a dangerous tool, and I think we can discuss about this after. But I think informing citizens on the impact they can have, I think that would be very important in small little things.
If you want. Yeah, go ahead.
Why would citizens care? I'm very simple. I think people would only care if they understand that it has a benefit to them, or to their society, or their family, or their children. And the further you go, your grandchildren. If somebody, and I have a grandson, if I get to understand that something bad may happen to my grandson if I don't act, then I start caring, and then I start changing. So you have to come to a position, I believe, that citizens, and this is all of us, get something that touches us here and not only here. And then you start moving. So if people start to understand sustainability and what it means and what it does not mean if we do not pursue towards sustainability, I think that then they will start beginning to care, because still today a lot of people really don't care.
May I also reflect that it starts here and then it comes here? Because you need to know how it comes here. If you're not informed, it will not come here.
But it shouldn't stay up here.
Well, the problem with up here is also that sometimes citizens get mixed messages. So what happens if we take biofuels, for instance? Yeah, okay, well, this is one example where it may be positive on one side, but there is deforestation in
that is the point,
Indonesia.
Is the information that we are providing that has to be always science-based and effective. This is not easy. It's not easy exercise. Today we are communicating maybe too much through different easy systems that are not controlled. That is the point, yes, information, because Bioeconomy can offer healthy food, can offer a lot of opportunity, healthy planet. We can continue, the story is well known. But we need to communicate, and then, as she mentioned from the app, we move in the app, and then we react. We don't have alternative. They have to also act, because we cannot continue in such a way, so very important. So nothing else, but just to support the fact that information, communication is a problem now, because the so-called fake news are too many.
Coming back to this point, there was a time when we in industry, because it's always science-based, sound science, etc., which means we always start here. But those who were combating industry were not talking to the people up here. They're talking here. So we thought at a certain moment that there was a while in industry, we said maybe we should do the same thing. Start talking here, but make sure it will ring a bell up here. Otherwise, you don't make sense either. But you see, it's very difficult. It's not like Fabio says. We can kill people with information. It's not a massive communication that we need. It is the efficiency of communication that we need.
And also clear information and transparent, because what happens now is that it's not because they are refusing bio-based products for some reason. Sometimes it's just because they don't know, so they don't trust, they are not safe enough, they don't feel confident enough. And so there is this contradiction, and when you are in a contradiction, you don't act. And then you refuse. And then there are a number of strange events that are happening now. For instance, I just made you an example. In Italy, there are some composters that are refusing the bioplastic now. And you know why? Because they want to produce the compost in 23 days against the 2 months that is by law. So they are launching a lot of campaigns involving media, simply saying, you don't have to throw the compostable stuff in the organic bin. And in what happens in the social media, everybody said, oh, we got the wrong information, we don't have to. And so there is this multiplication message of something that was not right, was just something coming from nothing. And so this could be a risk in this moment, to really diffuse or to not identify in time these bottlenecks, and maybe the, let's say, bio-based bubble can explode in the bad way, or can explode and grow in a good way. So I believe, from my perception, we are in a moment in which we can go in one direction or totally in another direction, and the role of citizen is absolutely central in these two streets.
But coming back to the question of mixed messages, the bio-based product consumption is also part of a larger environmental responsibility, right, for citizens. So if a citizen is asked to sort his waste, and then he sees on TV that countries don't even have the infrastructure to deal with the waste, and the waste is being exported, and it becomes landfill waste in Malaysia. How do you address that? Because then it's really a question of information, but it's not fake news. Take a mic. But is there anything we can do? Not again the land, well, it's another discussion, but there is a lot of information that is coming, and not all of it is fake. So it's also a reality that it's not all bright, and it's not everything is ready, and for the shift towards a sustainable society. The citizen may have a central role, but they are not the only one, and they need to be guided, right? So how do we guide them? Who should guide them?
There are parallel things that should proceed in the same time. We cannot, I mean, and one is not preventing the other. So in one end, we have to address the problem, the challenges, the bottleneck, and in the other end, we have to keep on creating the consensus and also using the citizens to really identify what are these bottlenecks. For instance, in the design of bio-based products, there are things that are not acceptable. There are studies about how bioplastic is nice to be touched, for instance, or not. So having the citizen in the center of even the design of the bio-based products is fundamental, because you don't go too far in one direction and then you discover that is not the right direction. So questions like design thinking or co-creation or mobilization mutual learning should be increasingly. I have to say that BBIJU is just launched a call that we participate, so I hope that we will be, but they are not saying anything. But anyway, next week we will have the results. Basically, this call is very important independently. I'm kidding, who will be the winner, because it's really putting the citizen in the center of the design of industrial and policy agendas. So the winner of this call will be able to really make the difference. No, Nelo, what do you think about this?
I don't know who's going to be the winner.
I don't want to know who will be the winner, but
And even,
I hope.
and even I knew, I wouldn't say it at this moment.
No, I'm kidding. But I think that this project will play a role, an important role in that sense.
Definitely.
No?
That's why we wrote the topic. And your question, who should talk to the citizens? To be very honest again, I don't believe the industry should do that. Because an average citizen doesn't really trust the industry. Not yet. I work in the chemical industry for many, many years. We were the last speaking partner to the citizens. You know, they didn't want to hear. Bio-based may be a little different, but still, I don't think industry is the prime speaking partner. We should seek those that citizens listen to and trust. And these we should, you know, get to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve, what is sustainability, and what will happen if we do not succeed in this. And have these multipliers or these trusted persons spread the word. And once the citizens start to better understand, you know, again, I saw that this in the chemical industry. At a certain moment when we were having open days, we opened up the doors of our chemical plants. Then all of a sudden, those citizens in the vicinity who were always, by way of speaking, throwing stones at us, now they entered. And they really saw and started to understand what is happening. And it's this kind of gradual process I believe we should expect, which will happen.
So who are these people that the citizen listen to? Is it the Greta Thunbergs of this world, or is it the media, local association, mayors? Who is it?
My feeling is that we have to teach in the low school, high school a lot, in a good way, simple way, because I'm sure that those young people, young citizens will teach at home and will create the system. This is my personal opinion. And we are also doing this exercise. In Italy, as an example, we have an important publisher, scientific book publisher, which is supporting this kind of activity in all Italy, in the main cities. There are professors, often from the university, who are spending some hours in the high school for presenting, or also primary school, for presenting things, bringing stuff in the class, in a way to teach the young people there, but also the professors who are teaching to the students there. This, in my view, is the first thing from which we can start from. And then they will be very effective at home, explaining how we can split the waste, separate, and so on. They are the main teacher, I think, the young. So this is my personal feeling.
So then the citizens can become multipliers themselves.
Yeah, I would like also to add to this, to primary school, and I also did not say it, but this is also something, we also bring primary students to university. So we have a called University Day for Children, and it's from 8 to 12 years old, and where we address different topics. So there's presentations, but there are also to do things in different, also in this area of bio-based. And there comes hundreds of these young children to the university. We also have programs in which we teach the teachers. So the teachers to teach certain aspects on bio-based or also other topics. So we do this I believe primary school, it's a very essential, it's where it all starts. And also at high school, so in the Netherlands, they have to do a project at the end of the high school, and we have many students that come to talk about bio-based and the biomass, and they want, and there's also there, so they write a report, so they come and interview us, and they come and talk to different people, and this is how it starts, and this is the basis, because these will be the professionals in the future. We don't have professionals now that can cope with this, also with these all complex bio-based industries. I think we need to form them, and I think this is the easiest and more basic kind of message that you can bring in when starting when we are young, in fact.
Yeah, to name a few, and specifically the young, inspiring people that you have nowadays on Instagram, the bloggers, they have an enormous impact on people. And then you have teachers in the primary school, teachers in the secondary school. You know, to give you an anecdote, you know, I have sons, and the technical when they were in a secondary school, one day they came home and they said, "Dad, you work in the chemical industry?" I said, "Yes." They said, "But it's dangerous, it's dirty, and all this." And how come? The teacher in secondary school teaching chemistry was talking like that about chemical industry. You said this is killing. So if if we succeed in getting to these people that inspire young people, because this is really where you have to start, including teachers in primary, secondary, and also parents, football club leaders, trainers. This is where, you know, cafe bosses. Sunday, you go to a cafe, you'll be amazed to know what all the topics and conversations are. You know, there's where we have to talk about sustainability.
Very good, Susanna.
If we talk about kids, we have a number of games that we develop in the context of BioWaste, and they have been really successful. Different type of games, and also we did several initiatives in high school. One was training the kids to train the other kids, because there are these weeks in which they teach to the other kids, and so we got a few of them. We trained them on Bioeconomy, and they were multiplying the message. And we also supported the regional authorities, in specific case the Lazio region, in injecting the Bioeconomy prize in a school prize for entrepreneurship capacities that take place every year. And last year, those guys have been awarded with some cups with coffee waste. They've been awarded. We involved some companies, Novamont and other companies. So it was a kind of putting together the dots. But I want to add other multipliers, the architects, for instance, the professional, because if you think about building insulation, you cannot reach the final user. You have to reach someone that is an intermediary, that is someone that is expert and perceived as an expert. So those people should be addressed. The designers, the fashion designers, and joined on the social media. Instagram is one of the places where we are more active in the BioVoices project. But we are addressing specifically the influencers. Environmental activists or sustainable influencers. Now there are a lot, because if you consider, in the majority of cases, Instagram is about beautiful ladies that are taking pictures of themselves with beautiful dresses. And so they are promoting fast fashion, rubbish fashion, basically. And there is a kind of movement now that is in opposition of this. So they really promote buy less, buy quality stuff.
There's Black Friday and Block Friday, right?
Yeah. Yes, Green Friday in opposition of exactly this.
Good. Fabio, did you want to add anything? I'm going to take questions from the audience, if there are. Yeah, there is one. 2. Can we have a mic? Can you please introduce yourself?
Here's a mic.
It's multitasking.
My name is Mario Roccaro. I work for EIT Food. And first of all, thank you. Very, very nice conversation. And you have touched and dissect very well all the, what are the elements that compose the involvement of a citizen. And I have a little experience to bring, and this experience is basically related to the fact that right now we have young people mature to understand what bioeconomy, what food waste is, what these aspects are. So this is something that it's fantastic opportunity for us and for them. And for instance, you have already listed a huge number of examples how to involve young people, and EIT Food actually launched in a cross-kick manner in south of Italy, in Sicily, in Slovenia, in Hungary, and circular economy, under the circular economy umbrella, to go to schools. Actually, to take for once the teacher away and to leave the student to think how to address a challenge, how to actually do it in a way that they will create a mini company, and they create, from this company they will develop then and solve the challenge. So there is a lot of things related to critical thinking, problem solving, understanding leadership and management. They are fundamental. And I think we do have now young people which understand these things. It's more a comment than a question.
Yeah, exactly. But that's maybe there is more of a questions on the other side.
Good afternoon. You touched at one point on the importance of the scientific basis as an argument to also persuade citizens, and maybe this is more applicable to other continents, but what if you take that away, or what if that's compromised? Specifically, there are topics and documentaries coming out where they are supported, the arguments are supported by scientific publications, but those publications are maybe sponsored by big industry or with other stakeholders with particular interests, and maybe the common citizen does not know the difference between correlation and causality, or the influence of a sample size on a study. And for you academics, is that something that's also a challenge now in your field, and how should we address that? Thank you.
You academics. Fabio.
Well, maybe I'm also the older one, right? Yeah, so. Well, I know the point. I know the point. But in my experience, there are a few cases in which you can have such a kind of things. Because very often, if you have money coming from a company, the company is interested mostly in patenting the results. You are normally not publishing. You can publish later after it. But well, in my experience, frankly speaking, that was the experience. The majority of money came in my lab coming from Brussels or from national funds, so in which we are really study things and publish the results without any particular But I know the point is existing, especially in the health area. Sometimes this is happening, but I think it's not the major situation. I'm optimistic under that point of view. But the story is that the scientists are not always aligned. If you go through climate change, there are geologists that are thinking that climate is changing for totally different reasons. There are Nobel Prizes defending this. So it's not, this is another story, okay? It's another story. Scientists, which are thinking differently on the reasons, on the challenges. But, okay, so thank you. This is my experience from my side. I don't know if you can.
No, I agree, but I also think I would like to add to this is that, for example, the LCAs that are done, there's really a need for standardization, and this is really an important thing also in my field, so in aquatic biomass. We're now going through the procedure of standardization. So what is the efficiency? How do you calculate the efficiency? How do you calculate the water footprint? How do you calculate the energy efficiency in your process? Because this would be information that would be very nice to bring to the citizens, but it's very dangerous if it's not standardized. And that's a difficult step, but it's also a step that we've heard about it also during this day, and that is something that will be very important to follow up, in my opinion.
At what level should it be standardized? So,
I'm sorry?
At what level should it be standardized? Should it be a European thing?
It should be in European, should be for sure at European level, yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay. We have one more question here.
Yeah. Hi, this is Pier Giuseppe Morone from Unitelma Sapienza, University of Rome. I have a question for Nelo Emerencia. You touched in your introduction about the lack of skills. Then the discussion went on more than on education, more on sensibilizing a citizen. So my question is, what's the skills gap that you feel as a representative of bio-based industries between the job market nowadays and what is the demand for the emerging bio-based economy? And what are the skills that are needed in, let's say, 5 to 6 years, which is the time needed to prepare students for BA, then a master, PhD. So we need 6 to 8 years to put on the job market people with new skills. What are these gaps? Are you looking at the skills that will be needed in 8 years from now?
That's correct. At this moment, the industry started a process to force ourselves to lean back, close your eyes, and imagine you are in 2040 or 2050 or heading in that direction. What kind of people are working in your company, in your sector? What are they doing? What are they performing? So, forcing us to quantify and qualify the skills that we need. This survey is part of a CSA that is running now. And I was just informed, I was just talking to the coordinator there, that the first results are coming in. But definitely they're going in a direction of, we had this experience in the past also when we were anticipating which kind of people, skills do we need for the future chemical industry. Because the chemical industry is also going through this sustainable chemistry procedure. Definitely came out of there that we are looking for universities and vocational schools to deliver multidisciplinarity. In other words, when I went to university, I'm a chemical engineer and that's it, period. I never heard anything about bio. Out of interest, I went on the weekends, I did courses in economics, etc. This today is a must. Given the variety and the diversity teams that we are working in, if you look at the bio-based industry, we're bringing people from aquatic to all the way from forest together. These are different disciplines. So you need to have a minimum level of awareness and understanding of different disciplines to be able to make any contribution and be able to understand what the others are saying and talking to you. So we're looking for somebody who like a 1,000 legged person. But so at this moment we are quantifying what is it that we need in terms of skills and competencies. And when we have that information, we're going to carry on a dialogue with educational institutions to see what is possible and when will it be possible. And we realize that if we say today, or wish today, we would like to have a person that looks like ABC. You don't push a button and we have it tomorrow. It's going to be like a 5 to 10 year process. So it's a tedious process that we're going to start.
Should we have chief bio officers in the companies of tomorrow?
I think we're looking at, first of all, we need to have people who really understand what is a biotechnological process, what's happening in that vessel. And if you do not have that knowledge or that insight, you won't be able to make sure that the process operates as it should. I think in the future, every company will have bio officers at every level to accompany the workforce, so that we continue to be in the right direction. Because don't forget, this whole field continues to evolve all the time. It keeps changing. So aside from talking to education institutions to deliver the skills from new people coming out on the market, we have to work on this long life, or long life learning. So continue to educate yourself to be abreast.
Very good. Do you think Europe is doing better than the rest of the world in terms of engagement from citizens?
You mean who?
You.
I'm not sure I got the question.
Do you think Europe is doing better if we compare with China or the US? Do you think is Europe doing better?
At least is trying. And then, of course, there are interesting also outcomes from here that really Europe can play a role as a front runner in this. Also because, culturally, we have some values that are kind of more linked to the SDG rather than other countries. And so probably is on our DNA to be the front runner, no?
Fabio first and then Nelo.
Well, I think we are doing well, and we will do better in the close future, especially through the Horizon Europe, which is coming. Where, as you know, there are 5 missions. 2 of them are one on healthy soil and food, the other one is on healthy ocean, seas, and water. And those missions will put together priorities that are coming from a deep discussion with citizens. It's a co-creation. The teams will work, and each country will mobilize the citizens and so on. So this is a technical instrument in which citizens will be on board in setting the scene and discussing. Of course, it's a very difficult exercise, but this is something new, structurized. It's not a momento, it's a structure that has been launched, and I'm expecting an important input from this. Since I have the microphone, I will add something else here, because yes, we have to mobilize citizens. But as I mentioned in my first minute of my talk, we need to have them on board in planning, in designing the project, in creating the innovation. They have to be inside the system. Currently, in the projects that we have rarely primer producers in our project, in our strategy. And we do not have the end consumers on board. So I think in the coming years, we should have call for proposals in which farmers and the citizens have to be in the project as full partners, because we need to have them since the beginning in planning from which we are starting and also the final impact. This is one suggestion for the Commission, of course, from my friend, because we need to go in that direction. We cannot have citizens, but the representative of citizens, association of citizens, has to be on board. When we are setting the scene, when we are preparing the project, we have to listen to them. So we have to make the value chain longer. In such a way, we will have project more impacting, with more chance to provide the advantages, the final impacts. This is my personal feeling. As a whole professor, but in particular as a scientist, all scientists, we need to have those other actors on board since the beginning.
Okay, but how do we turn that into reality, though? It can't be just a citizen on the street or a farmer in the middle of, I don't know what country.
You can have associations.
Associations.
Dealing with that. And if the call for proposal in the text is written that in the consortium you have to have primary producers and final end consumers, if you put in the narrative of the topic, the applicants has to have those things, those actors on board for having a strong consortium, convincing the evaluators. But in any case, the result is that they design the project in which they also listen the partners, the first one and the end one.
Very good, Nelo.
Actually, on building on what Fabio just said, in the next call, the 2020 call, we just completed the annual work plan 2020. We have a number of topics where we put it almost like an eligibility criteria, which is not really allowed, but it's a very clear condition that the consortia submitting proposals for this topic must include primary actors as a active participant in the consortia, and even that they should be leading the consortia. So we went 2 steps ahead in our effort to really involve the primary sector, because we really want that, and the primary sectors also want that. On your citizens, whether Europe is better or not, I don't know, but Europe is in a position to really take the lead, because we must. Europe has the culture that citizens have an enormous say in decisions. Citizens can stop a lot of processes because, they protest, and we have legal procedures. They can hold up. I know an example of a highway in the Netherlands was kept hold up for more than 20 years because citizens kept, protesting, and until the project was totally changed to satisfy most of their needs. This is when the project took off. So this is Europe. In America, in China, this is not happening. So we have a must. We must involve the citizen in order to proceed with the involvement and the evolutions towards a sustainable society. We just have to.
All right. Was there? And then I will take other questions.
I was just speaking 5 minutes before starting with Coldiretti, that is a farmer association, and she said, if you want to speak with our farmers, you really need to speak their language. You really need to provide something for them that is tangible, very short at the point. So even this is important in this discussion. So if, depending on the target audience that you want to involve, you really need to be in, you really need to understand what are their key messages, motivation, as we started in the beginning, and so, and really speak their language, using the arguments that are relevant to them, that are actionable to them, even providing contents that they can really actionable, they can really put in practice, because otherwise it's just theoretical and they don't care, especially the farmer or the primary producers, no?
But Susanna and Maria, you're both involved directly in projects, right? So what has been your assessment of the gaps in citizen engagement, especially in those areas that are probably more remote from cities and
well, I was very happy with what I heard from Fabio, because that's also, we always have to have a communication work package in all project areas, but it is one-way communication. So there's no feedback then. You have to communicate to the public, and that's also in the calls. You always have to, but the communication is one way. We have to approach them, but there's no interference. There's no feedback, and this is I find it really a fantastic idea to put it compulsory in the calls. That you also they are involved. The citizens are involved in the new calls.
Regarding the gaps, excuse me, Nelo, just
go
very
ahead,
quickly, and
Nelo.
it's very attached to this. In BioVoices, for instance, we are implementing 70 events locally. This means that we go locally. When we talk about bioeconomy, we need to be local, because the feedstock, the problems, the resources, it is all local, even the language. That is another issue. And then so to involve them, to co-create, we do this mobilization and mutual learning activities locally. And they are really, effective to really produce some impactful outcomes. So this is something that I can recommend to address the gaps. Now, the problem is that this is time-consuming, money-consuming, effort-consuming. So if we want to give recommendations, CSA with 1 million budget are kind of dispersive, because you can put few people, few partners, you cannot reach a lot of regions, you cannot do local activities, and you are kind of, let's say, you want to do, but you cannot, because you don't have the possibility. While BioVoices, for instance, we have several projects so we can compare our experience. A project with something like 2 or 3 million enable you really to reach not the three times more impact, but 10 times more. So this is another recommendation, if we are providing recommendation here.
Oh, but I'm also saying, just to comment, but I also think in the RIAs or in demonstrations, this should also be included, because not only in CSAs, but also really on the technical part from the primary producer to the end, to the consumer. And I think this is where I was saying that it misses this two-way communication in more, let's say, in these RIAs and demonstration projects.
Absolutely true. We've come a long way since we started to write annual work plans, and nowadays we are demanding almost in topics, RIA, demo, flagships, to the proposals, the projects should also submit proof of an effect, an impact of the action, including communication actions. So it's not enough to have a program and then you issued it and you can prove it was on my website or I did so many. No. What did it result in? What was the impact? And we need the project to come in with proof that it had anything. So we're learning as we're moving ahead. And talking about the point that you raised, what is money? There's never enough money, but we are in a struggle also. What is a CSA supposed to do? A CSA, Coordination Support Action, the way we've been looking at them so far, these are studies, these are analysis, these are to prepare the ground for something better. And nowadays you see more and more CSAs that are moving in a direction of coming up with a project and implement the project as well. It's good, but it may not be the original idea of a CSA. But if any of the CSAs, and I know that you're working on a number of them, starts with coming in with real project and project results, this might also force us to look at a different way at CSAs. So there's never a dull moment in this world. You keep learning every day.
And that's the list of recommendations starts increasing, so that's good. It's getting longer. We do have a journalist in the room taking note, by the way, a science business journalist. Yeah, do we have any questions? Yeah, please. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Hans Rijp.
You have a microphone.
Wageningen University. I'm a bit concerned by something that was mentioned before. It's about conflicting messages. And today I also heard in some sessions that speakers were saying there is some skepticism. Is bio-based economy, is that really a good solution? Is it sustainable? So we have people here, the food versus fuel debate, we all know that. Are we going to use agricultural crops for fuel? Now the consensus is now it's not a good idea. So we went to second generation. In the news is we need to plant, 10 billion trees to take CO2 out of the atmosphere. And now the bio-based people are coming, no, we need those trees. We're going to cut them down, produce chemicals from them, fuels, bioenergy. So I think the story, the very basic story, it's all cyclic, of course, but it's not complete yet. And I'd like to hear the view of the panelists, what they can say about it. Maybe we forget the very basics, that it's a cyclic process. The biomass is just one way of harvesting solar energy, and we should not forget that and make that very clear.
Thank you. But although you do have to connect that to citizens, in a way.
There's concern. There's actually in the Netherlands,
conflicting messages and concerns.
There's a lot of resistance against Vattenfall. They want to build a bioenergy plant, firing wood pellets. and the people living around it are now concerned about emissions. Well, that's valid, dust, NOx. But also, some activists are now saying, yes, but that's going to release a lot of CO2. Cyclic, of course. They're going to say, if you want to feed that plant, you need production forests. That will harm biodiversity. So there's a lot of things that I cannot personally answer completely. So I'd like to hear what you feel about that.
Who wants to give it a try? The Green Deal is tackling a bit those issues, at least in the field of biofuels. But is there any additional comments you'd like to make?
Strictly from an industrial perspective, and again, I worked in the chemical industry. We were flabbergasted by the legislation to favor biofuels. In all honesty, and now I'm very, very personal, I think this was one of the most stupid decisions we ever made, to favor and route everything to make biofuel. This put the whole pyramid of value adding upside down, and it delayed, to say the least, a number of innovative processes that could have gone. I've seen industry streams going to, for example, oleochemical plants in the Netherlands, for example, that I know very well, and all of a sudden they were diverted to go somewhere else to make biofuels. So it's still there. We should stop this. So, but people, citizens, you and I, we all hear this whole thing about biofuel, and everybody starting, and then all of a sudden it turned out that we were taking food out of the mouth. This is, the NGO started to make all sorts of noise. We're taking food out of the mouth of babies and everywhere to put it in the tank of a car. And then you hear stories like the green vegetables coming from Mexico were doubling or tripling and whatever in price because of we were making biofuels in Europe. So this whole thing, was a very, very bad effort. And now we are confronted with that situation. And now, how do we clear this? How do we change this? This is going to be taking a long time. But again, it boils down to correct information, involving citizens, getting citizens to be spoken to by those that they trust, rather than people that they don't trust to start with. I don't know what else to say, but it's I know what you mean. It's difficult. No, the story is no. We just started.
Maria, did you want to
it's about that. It's just started, and I don't think there are the answers to all the questions that you posed, that you just did, Hans. And I also think about the clarity. I think that's really an issue, because even sometimes for me it was bio-based economy, then it's circular economy, there's sustainability, then it had a lot of concepts and definitions which are not clear for most of the citizens. And I think it should be worked on, what we bring. First it was bio-based. It's also because it's a growing industry, so it's it's changing, so it's continuously changing at this moment, so it's not mature enough. But there's a lot of concepts which brings a lot of confusion to citizens, sometimes also to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, even us here in the church, if you look, and it was mentioned this morning, if you search for the word bioeconomy in the recent documents, it's hardly there. And the word was launched 2-3 years ago. So we're going from here to there, we're going all over the place. So are we in search of clarity among and for ourselves? Yes. And towards the citizen? Yes, with an exclamation mark. Yes.
Fabio.
Well, I think we need a dictionary, a small, simple dictionary with some glossary, yes. Maybe we should think about that, because this is the only way again, for clarifying the sheen and making things easier. Because I agree, it's difficult for me, to follow the things. I can understand that for citizens. But we need a simple glossary, yes. We color a few things, impacting, and the unique one for Europe. Only one for Europe. I think this is another message for the Commission, because the only governance that we have, we are lucky because we have the Commission, which is taking things, asking us to do it taking care to the overall picture. So this is an opportunity, but this is something simple, but maybe useful.
Indeed, communicating bioeconomy or bio-based economy doesn't have any sense because nobody, I mean, in most countries, bio means organic, and so creates much more confusion. So now, if you want to launch a campaign, for instance, on Instagram or Facebook, you should touch arguments like climate change, thanks to Greta, like sustainability. You should use these words, and then when they are on board, you explain them in detail. But you cannot attract people with bio. We made some tests in Instagram launching campaigns, and the campaigns with bio-based or bioeconomy didn't get any result for the simple fact that they said, what the hell is this? Still. So probably, or we need to come, I like this Green Deal or this transition toward a more sustainable lifestyle, all this new way that Europe is trying to define this change, this transition. Because otherwise the risk is that kind of we are some elite people speaking with ourselves of something that is not understandable by the large public. And bioeconomy is already there. I mean, is there. So basically we're not talking of something new. We are talking something that, no?
Well, Nelo, you wanted to come in. Then I have one last question and then we wrap up.
I wanted to, maybe 10, 15 years ago, if he would talk to citizens in general about climate action or climate change, I would guess 50 to 60% will look you in the face and say, what? Just like today, the bio. Nowadays, I would guess that 60 to 70% do understand what it is. But why? Because all of a sudden you see and you hear very nearby, some flooding stuff is happening, and now everybody's tying these things to climate change. And climate change now becomes something that people would recognize, whether it's right or not. But nowadays, people start to feel the need because they don't want their own houses also to be flooded. And, these hot summers and all these fires, everything now is tied to climate change. So climate change now all of a sudden is in the kitchen on the table being discussed. And a couple of years, not. You don't wish any calamity like this to be happening to the world for people to understand bio or sustainability, but the people's mind and heart act like they work like this. You need to have something very disruptive, almost killing, for you to act dramatically.
Okay, last 30 seconds to each of you. Horizon Europe is in the negotiation. We have now a clear picture of what will be on the program. The money isn't yet very clear. The other thing that is not yet very clear is the future of partnerships. So, is there one message you'd like to deliver? Yeah, it's very unfair because that would deserve another hour of discussion. But why do you think BBI is needed in the next program in connection with citizen engagement? Cultural, well, you need to put it under the shift, the cultural shift towards a sustainable society angle. Fabio. Yeah.
First, Nelo, of course.
Well, I'm a strong supporter of partnerships, but mainly because they're mobilizing SMEs, but I think through SMEs, small companies, very often startups, so young people, young scientists, we are also mobilizing in some ways citizens. So they are unique with respect to other programs, Horizon 2020, etc. The partnerships are doing more and working also in some countries in Europe that are behind the schedule on other kind of tools. So I think they are also effective on mobilizing scientists indirectly, mobilize citizens. Yeah. Through the coordination support action that we mentioned, this PPP launched five CSAs in some ways on training, education, involvement, etc. But also the way through which they are working efficiently mobilizing the small companies is an indirect way through which they are reaching citizens. in some ways because they are mobilizing small companies working on the territory, and they are sharing, they are planning things together with the territory.
Very good. Maria.
May I say something? Yeah. So what I think is that the BBI was been very important because it's very focused on bio-based, and it created a critical mass which exists at the moment. And in these first years, you cannot tackle everything. So you have to develop the technology, you have to develop the value chain, the different process steps. And now it's also time in the follow-up to bring it closer to the citizens. And that's also what we've been discussing, that there should be certainly a follow-up, I believe, and it should bring it now closer to the citizens. There were some gaps that we discussed, and I think they should be addressed in the follow-up.
All right. 10 seconds, Nelo. I've got big signs that we need to wrap up.
We definitely believe that the public-private partnership is needed because we need this is only an emerging industry. We need the governments to help us de-risk, and get us to the next phase, 7-8 years that we get going. And also we believe that industry should remain in the lead because by doing so, we can set up a program that industry supports from the start. This is how you really get them to act. And the other and last thing is that since we are seeing that our employees, our people are very, very crucial, and we are working on this skills and education, through our employees, we also reach citizens because our employees are also citizens.
Very good. That would be the word of the end. All right? Oh, Susanna, you want to?
I have nothing special.
You're good? Okay, good. Then that were the word of the ending word. So thank you very much. Please join me in thanking the speakers.